Thank you, oh Lord. There is football right here in front of our faces. I don't know about you guys, but I am ecstatic that this 2021 NFL regular season is ready to kick off. It is right here in front of our faces. We finally get some NFL regular season football back after a long wait. There have been a lot of offseason moves made. There have been a lot of trades. And we've already previously covered the 5 teams that should see improvement in this 2021 NFL regular season. I will leave that video link in the description below. So we're going to reverse things today, and we're going to talk about the 5 teams that will see a significant downfall in this 2021 NFL regular season. But before I get into that, make sure you guys leave this video a like. That continues to help this channel to grow. And if you are not subscribed and that button is not red below, make sure you click it and subscribe to the channel for more football content. And click that notification bell so you will not miss a single video that I post. But enough with all that. Let's get into this list. Without further ado, let's dive into it.
I'm striving to get rich. That's why I always went 2 years without buying shoes and fits. Things change now. My mom hearing me with my music and she look a little proud.
For number 5 and number 4, we're going to get 2 obvious football teams out of the way. So we're going to start off with the Detroit Lions as the number 5 team to see a downfall. This Detroit Lions team is going to be, I believe, one of the teams that is going to be competing for that number 1 overall pick. This football team has lost a ton this offseason, with Matthew Stafford being traded for Jared Goff, and now Goff is the new quarterback. They lost big-time receivers in Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones Jr. And on the defensive side of the ball, they lost one of the starting corners in Desmond Trufant. And looking at this Detroit Lions roster, it's just not very good. It's going to be interesting to see how Jared Goff looks outside of Sean McVay's system. But if history has its talent, I'm not really sure that Jared Goff is really going to thrive with this Detroit Lions team. And the Detroit Lions have a history of not really getting a lot of their football teams. Even though Jared Goff, I still think is right at that average to above average level as far as the quarterback position goes. And you have TJ Hawkinson at the tight end position for him to throw the ball to. At the wide receiver position, you do not have much with Tyrell Williams and St. Brown. I just don't think those guys are really good enough to really get this Detroit Lions offense to a point to where it's successful. Now, they did draft Penei Sewell in the first round, but he has struggled this preseason, and it's interesting to see how he goes from here. They did add Michael Brockers from the Rams, but when you look at this defense, it still has a lot of age with Jamie Collins and Trey Flowers not really being that guy that they signed him to be. Jeff Okudah from Ohio State last year missed a lot of time due to injuries, and it's going to be interesting to see how he develops in his second year in the NFL. And they did add Alex Anzalone, but this franchise, I think, is in rebuild mode. This football team is not going to be very good. In the NFC North, where you have Green Bay, where you have the Bears, I think is going to be a strong team. And you have the Minnesota Vikings, who I think is going to be a very strong team as well. So when you look at this Detroit Lions team, they're not going to be very good. And they're probably going to compete to have that number 1 overall pick in 2022. Sticking with teams that I think is going to compete for the number 1 overall pick in 2022, we're going to add the Houston Texans at number 4 on this list. Now we all know the Deshaun Watson saga is going to be the biggest headline for this Houston Texans team going into this 2021 NFL season, and we're not even sure if he's going to play football. And this Houston Texans team with Watson, with JJ Watt, was a 4-12 football team last year. And I think the trade of DeAndre Hopkins was just an absolute dumb move, and it really set this team back. Now that you lose JJ Watt, now we're not sure about Deshaun Watson going into this 2021 season. And you have injuries to Whitney Merciless, who has been unable to stay healthy throughout his career. You have Mark Ingram and Phillip Lindsay, but I'm not sure if Mark Ingram can go back to form. And Phillip Lindsay, I think he's a solid back, but he has struggled a bit at times too. And David Johnson has really not been the same running back since 2017. They did add Anthony Miller at the wide receiver position from the Bears. You do have Laramie Tunsil and Tyus Howard on the offensive line that is solid, but this team has just lost a lot over the past couple of years. Despite getting Desmond King, who is a solid corner, you have Justin Reed at free safety, who's solid. But when you look at this roster, they are a team that also should be in that hunt for that #1 overall pick slot. Even if Deshaun Watson comes back to play football, this team is just not a very good football team. Now, the Texans do have Tyrod Taylor, and me being honest, I like Tyrod Taylor's play. He is a solid quarterback, but overall with this roster and coaching changes and a lot of things going on within this organization, I think the cloud of the entire Deshaun Watson saga, the cloud of the entire organization just being a mess. This Houston Texans team, I don't see them having any success in this 2021 season. Here at number 3 is the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, a lot of people are going to be surprised by this, but on the defensive side of the ball, this Raiders defense has struggled with injuries to Jonathan Abram, injuries at the corner spot. They do add Casey Hayward, but I don't really feel he is the same player that he has been throughout the course of his career. Yannick Ngakoue, who when healthy and when on this game could be a really solid pass rusher. But to be honest, at the end of the day, this linebacking core with Perryman, Littleton, they did add KJ Wright, who I think was a big pickup. But on offense, this team has really been wildly inconsistent. Derek Carr, he's been solid, but he has some inconsistent play as well. Henry Ruggs did not really have a really good year last year. And you have wide receiver depth that's really not that great. Zay Jones hasn't been the same player since he left Buffalo. Willie Snead has been in and out. You have Hunter Renfrow, who's had some flashes, even though you do have Darren Waller at the tight end position, who's definitely a top 3 tight end in this league. The offensive line for the Raiders has been, let's just say, a struggle as well. Josh Jacobs has been a solid spot at the running back position. You did add Kenyon Drake, who I think could be a really solid player on this team. At the end of the day, this Las Vegas Raiders team over the past couple of years has been very inconsistent, especially late in the year. And I really don't expect them to be that much different this year, which is why I have them on this list, and which is why I think this team may suffer a fall during this 2021 NFL season. Now, John Gruden, I don't think he's going to be on the hot seat, but at the same time, the pressure on him to win, I think is really going to elevate, especially in the AFC with Buffalo, Kansas City in your own division, the Chargers, who are an up-and-coming team in your own division. The pressure is on the Raiders to compete right now. And looking at this roster, they just do not have enough to compete with the top teams in the AFC, despite beating Kansas City last year and being close with them in the second game. I just don't think this team has enough to be consistent. This team doesn't have enough to steady the ship and be one of those top contending teams for a playoff spot in the AFC. At number 2, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Eagles, I believe Jalen Hurts can be really, really solid in this league going forward. I do believe that he can be a very solid quarterback in this league in years to come. But on the offensive line, you have Lane Johnson, who's struggling with injuries. Jason Kelce, even though he's been solid, he is getting up there in age as well. On the defensive side of the ball, Fletcher Cox, I think, is still one of the better defensive tackles in football. Brandon Graham has some issues. Ryan Kerrigan coming in from Washington has been solid, but he hasn't been the same player that he was in his prime. Darius Slade did not have the greatest of seasons last year. You do have Anthony Harris at the free safety spot, but the linebacking core for this Philadelphia Eagles team, I think, will be the big downfall of them on the defensive side of the ball. And on the offensive side of the ball, I just don't think this roster has enough weapons for Jalen Hurts to really spread the football to. And I think this offensive line is going to struggle a bit to protect them, which I believe Jalen Hurts is probably going to be running for his life for a good portion of this season. Now, Miles Sanders, I believe, can elevate himself into the top back conversation in the NFL because he is really talented, and he is a guy that I really see can have a breakout season despite the struggles I think they're going to have on this offensive line. I think Miles Sanders is talented enough to have a really good season. But when you think about Miles Sanders having a really good season and Jalen Hurts, I don't think he's going to be protected well enough, and I don't think he has enough weapons on the outside to spread the football to. Despite drafting Devontae Smith in the first round, I don't think Jalen Reagor and Quez Watkins qualifies as those guys that can be consistent enough to make plays in this Philadelphia Eagles offense. And you have an NFC East division where I think Washington is still going to be a really competitive football team in that division. And Dallas, barring health, I think can really improve on their 2021 NFL season. And also you have the New York Giants, who've made a ton of moves to improve. And when you look at this Eagles roster, I think out of all the rosters in this NFC East, I think they really have the fourth best team in that division, to be honest. The number one team on this list is going to be a bit of a shock, and I'm going to have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the number one spot. Now, their 11-0 start last year proved to be fluky as they lost 4 out of their last 5 games and got demolished in the playoffs by the Cleveland Browns. A lot of people are going to say the Steelers roster still looks very good, and it really does on paper. It really does look very good. But they had a lot of changes on the offensive line with DeCastro now out, Pouncey announcing his retirement, and you do add Trey Turner, who can be solid, but this offensive line has gone through a ton of changes. Even though bringing in Najee Harris to replace James Conner, I think is a big improvement. I really see Big Ben not being the same quarterback that he has been in years past. I think Father Time is really catching up to Ben Roethlisberger right now. He says he feels healthier, but watching that last year, I don't believe Big Ben is enough to elevate this team to get in a higher echelon in the AFC. Now, defensively, they return a lot of their players. The biggest piece of the puzzle on that defense is TJ Watt. And TJ Watt and his contract dispute can be a distraction for him this season because he has not shown up. He has not been there for workouts. TJ Watt is the absolute biggest piece on this defense. And if he was in the fold and things were taken care of, he is definitely a defensive player of the year candidate. Now, offensively, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool are a solid wide receiver core. But along with Eric Ebron at the tight end position, this team has struggled to catch the football on a consistent basis. They had a ton of drops last year, and watching them this preseason, they also had a ton of drops this preseason. It could easily be said that this Pittsburgh Steelers team is going to compete. It could easily be said that this Pittsburgh Steelers team is going to be at the top of that AFC North. But I think with Cleveland getting a lot better, Baltimore staying at that top level, I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers have enough to overtake those two young football teams. And I think Ben Roethlisberger's father's time is catching up with him, and I think it's going to hit him this season. Even though it's kind of surprising that the Pittsburgh Steelers come in at number one, I just do not think this football team will make the playoffs. Yes, I'm making that bold statement now. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I do not believe, will make the playoffs. Despite Mike Tomlin being one of my favorite coaches in the NFL and being one of the better coaches in the NFL and not having a losing season throughout his tenure as the Steelers coach, but Father Time is going to hit Big Roethlisberger, and I feel that this offense is going to struggle a bit. And the running game was a big downfall for them last year. Najee Harris does bring an upgrade, but with the offensive line changing so much, I don't think this offensive line is going to hold up well enough to get the running game going for Ben Roethlisberger to get the ball to the playmakers. So that's why I have the Pittsburgh Steelers at number one as the team to take a big fall in this 2021 season. That is it for the 5 teams that I have that will see a downfall in this 2021 NFL regular season. Do you guys agree or disagree with any of the teams that I have on this list? Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. I would love to continue this conversation going forward. And if you have got to this point, make sure you guys leave this video a like. That helps with YouTube's algorithm and helping this channel to grow. And if you also are not subscribed, go ahead, click that subscribe button and notification bell so you will not miss out on any other football content that I post. And also check out the video of the 5 teams that should see improvement of the 2021 NFL regular season. I'll have that video in the description below. But that is all I've got. APW Sports signing out. Make sure you guys stay safe. Have a great and excellent day, and I'll catch you guys in the next vid. Peace.